up, Falcons fans, and welcome to episode 2 of Talkin Birdy, an Atlanta Falcons podcast powered by sportstalkatl.com. I am your host, Matt Karoly. You can find me on Twitter at Matt Karoly, Karoly spelled Karoly. I am once again joined by my two co-hosts from the Sports Talk ATL team, Jake Gordon, Alex Lord. How you doing tonight, fellas?
I am doing good, and if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter over at Can't Guard Jake.
Yeah, I'm doing good too. Ready to get into this draft stuff. Falcons did pretty well. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. It's nice to have it in the rearview mirror. I don't know about the two of you, but I was getting sick of the speculation and the rumors and all the smoke. Just wanted to know what direction, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith were going to take us in. And, we got that answer and we got it early. We got it on Thursday with the 4th overall pick. And, it's a great feeling when the GM and the head coach, I'll speak for me personally, it's a good feeling when the GM and the head coach, their vision aligns with the vision that I thought that they were going to go in. I thought that was best given the timeline of where this team is at right now. And, with the 4th overall pick, they put their stamp on their tenure and their regime that started off, and they took the unicorn, the consensus, best non-quarterback in this draft, best non-quarterback that we've had in a while, probably since Quentin Nelson a few years back. And man, I have never looked forward to watching a Falcons offense more than I am this coming season. And I know what some people might be thinking is, what about the 2016 offense, the historically great, historically efficient 2016 offense? But, the thing with that offense is, if you look back to the previous season, 2015, the roller coaster ride that team put us on, starting 5-0, finishing a disappointing 3-8. Matt Ryan, Kyle Shanahan, first-year play caller, reportedly were at odds. And if it wasn't for an off-season meeting between the two of those guys, there's no telling if that 2016 run would have ever happened. But it did. And again, it was a fun offense to watch. Certainly want to get back to that point. But, with this 2021 team, there's tangible and palpable buzz surrounding this offense. And the hype is legit. And it's not just coming out of Flowery Branch, and it's not just coming out of the fan base. But, you see – analysts from PFF leading up to the draft saying if the Falcons took Kyle Pitts, this offense has the potential to be the top scoring, the best offense in football. And I certainly believe it. They have now finally some stability from a head coach who is a young genius, cutting edge play caller in Arthur Smith. You pair that with, in my estimation, one of the best kept secrets in the coaching community, the offensive line coach, Dwayne Ledford. And then look at who they have in the cupboard. They have Julio Jones still. They have Calvin Ridley. You add Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst, Russell Gage, Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson, 3 former first-round picks. Man, it has the potential to be a truly scary unit. So I thought there's no better topic than to talk about today than to spend our entire attention on that offense. We'll start with the draft picks. We'll talk about some undrafted free agents that stood out to us. We'll talk about some camp battles that we're now excited to watch on offense. And then we'll top it all off with some early depth chart predictions. So let's get into the draft talk. Let's get into Kyle Pitts. There's a lot that we can say about Kyle Pitts, both from an on-field and off-field standpoint. For me, I don't think there's no better way to sum up my opinions of Kyle Pitts than to say I think we have another Julio Jones on our hands, both from an on-the-field and an off-the-field standpoint. The kid's not even 21, but you wouldn't know it by the way he conducts himself in interviews. So, let's start with you, Jake. Give us your thoughts on Kyle Pitts, what you love. There's a lot you can say about him from an on-the-field standpoint. Is there anything that maybe concerns you with him? Give us your breakdown of the offensive weapon from the University of Florida.
No, and I think that's what I really like about him. There's not much that really concerns me. You got the catch radius, the athleticism, the size, the maturity. He, like you mentioned earlier, he's 20 years old. I think you're really just bringing in a fantastic player. I said this earlier this week. I think his floor is Darren Waller, and that's a pretty great floor to have. And I think if he really reaches his ceiling, you're looking at an Antonio Gates type player, like a true Hall of Fame tight end level talent. And it's unfair to put those expectations on him earlier. I'm saying if he comes out there and blows it out the water, this is where he'll be. But I mean, his catch radius is what's really impressive to me. He made Kyle Trask look a lot better than he was at times. He was going up and getting a lot of balls that he frankly should not have caught. And not to say it's a knock on Matt Ryan, but that's going to help him out a lot. Sometimes if you make an errant throw and you got a guy that can go up and go get it, especially him being the second guy on the roster that can do that with Julio. I'm just really excited. I think you couldn't have went wrong with this pick.
Alex, anything you want to add on Pitts?
You pretty much hammered it all down. There are a few things, he's versatile. You can line him up in the slot, on the boundary, in line with his hand in the dirt. Jake mentioned his insane catch radius, it can't be overstated how ridiculous it really is. I mean, it's Calvin Johnson-esque. Just throw it up and he'll go get it. But he's as good after the catch as he is in his routes. I mean, multiple times you saw him outrunning on a slant, on a 5-yard slant, outrunning SEC cornerbacks. Kelvin Joseph, who just went to the Cowboys, he took a slant on him 40, 50, 60 yards. I don't remember exactly. But, I mean, he's got everything. Before the catch, after the catch. I mean, he's just the real deal in every facet of the game.
Yeah, and the Hall of Fame talk, while it is premature, that is hyperbolic. Him reaching his potential, I think the odds increase by him going to Atlanta. If he went somewhere else, if he went to, say Miami, whose, quarterback situation is a little unsettled, he might not reach that potential. But going to a spot with Matt Ryan, an established quarterback, still playing at a high level, going to an offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, who, said during the weekend is, tight end biased. So, he feeds his tight ends. He features his tight ends, led the league last year in 2 tight end sets. I don't think it's far off to say Kyle Pitts, again, is on that same trajectory that Julio Jones started off with. And we're going to be saying the same things about Kyle Pitts for the next 10 years, which is very exciting. So, again, the way they started off the draft, in my mind, it couldn't have been better. I was ecstatic. So let's talk a little bit about the offensive line selections. I was a little less ecstatic about these ones, and I'm not going to lie. When Jalen Mayfield was selected 68th overall in the 3rd round, it did kill my buzz a little bit following the first 2 picks. I mean, with Pitts, slam dunk there, and then what they did, and we'll get into it more on next week's show when we cover the defense, but what they did moving back and collecting a 4th round pick and getting one of their top rated safeties, one of my favorite players in Richie Grant, was an awesome start. But they did cool that momentum, I thought, when they took Jalen Mayfield, a guy that, again, at Michigan was a right tackle for 2 seasons, had 1st round, 2nd round buzz, and then, his pre-draft process, he kind of bombed it. The athletic testing was not good. And then now, we have the conversation of, we're projecting him to a position that he doesn't have much experience in, playing at left guard. And again, they said, on Friday when this pick was made, that they have a plan for him, and I'm very excited to see what that is. And, I'm going to give Smith and Ledford the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise, but certainly would have liked to seen them go kind of in a different direction. When you got guys like Quinn Minor still on the board, Wyatt Davis, Kendrick Green, you can kind of project them a little bit better to that left guard, and potentially they would be plug and play options. Whereas Mayfield, I think, is a bit of a projection, bit of a project. There is some aspects of his game that I do like. I like his footwork for the most part. I think he is, light on his feet for a big man. For me, I think where he struggles is the hand placement and the hand technique. And again, that's what coaching's for. So hopefully they can bring him along quickly when it comes to that. But yeah, I would have liked to seen them going in another direction. So I'll turn it over to you, Alex. Can you sell me and the fan base a little bit more on this pick, or were you equally kind of as disappointed as I was with it?
So I have the same concerns in terms of the actual prospect. If you look at just for what it is, he's not a great prospect because of some of the things you listed. He is quick off the ball. He brings some power in the running game. But just like you said, he was a third round pick for a reason. He's just not all there. But what I do point is exactly what you just said is Arthur Smith immediately knew that, some of us were going to have this opinion, and he said, we have a plan. And at this point in time, I mean, it's a little blind faith, but they've given us no reason to, distrust them. So we should trust them. He seems very confident. That was like on the tip of his tongue. We know Arthur Smith basically saying, we know he's never played left guard, but don't worry, we have a plan. He's going to fit in seamlessly. And I have to believe that. And, his raw athletics score was terrible as a tackle, but you kick him into guard, and he's a fairly athletic guard. So the athletic concerns about him being able to move in this zone offense laterally should be thrown out the window. He will have no problem doing that. Again, he's a young guy. He'll develop physically. Everything that is wrong is coachable. So, there is a slither of hope.
Jake, what are your thoughts on Mayfield?
Yeah, I mean, the guy was a projected first-round pick probably 3 weeks before the draft for a reason. I mean, he's a good finisher. He's got a mean streak to him, and you'll see this trend. Of course, we'll get into this later when we talk about the rest of these guys. But the Falcons were looking for guys who finish their blocks, high character, mean blockers. With Jalen Mayfield, one of the scouts, they gave a report on him. They called him, quote-unquote, dumpy. It's a little mean if you ask me, but apparently he's dumpy. But that's something you can fix. If they think the kid's a little overweight, if they think his frame's not that clean, whatever, that's fixable. You could pretty much fix that with anybody. And the coaching issues y'all alluded to. I trust Dwayne Ledford. I think Dwayne Ledford is going to be the best hire of the offseason. I think he was a sneaky, great hire. And I think that's why we saw the Falcons not take a swing on a guy like Creed Humphrey in the second round, not take a swing on a guy like Wyatt Davis, who's a little more ready in the third round, because they trust Dwayne Ledford to get the most out of somebody who has a little bit of a higher ceiling but a lower floor.
Yeah, and I think, too, what I've noticed with the two offensive line picks, they really want to improve the run, and I think there's an emphasis on the run blocking. And I will say – that's Mayfield's strength, and I think that's also Drew Dahlman's strength, which we'll get to here in a sec. Because when Mayfield gets his hands on guys in the run game, I mean, you're going on a ride. We need guys like that, guys that bring some physicality. So, again, I think they're taking a long approach, and like you said, they're trusting the coaching, and we have no reason not to trust the coaching right now. Again, until they give us a reason not to. So we'll see what happens. I don't think he's a year one starter, but down the line, this pick could be a big boom. But let's get into the next one. Drew Dahlman. This was another one that kind of, I love the player, but I couldn't help but feel a little bit disappointed for Matt Hennessy. The third round pick, who I was very high on last year. For me, that was the best pick of the 2020 class, was getting Hennessy. And I can't help but think Dahlman now has the inside track, given that he was selected by this coaching staff and given his connection to Ledford specifically. Drew's dad, Chris Dahlman, 7-year veteran with the San Francisco 49ers, and crossed paths with Ledford in 1999 there. So given all that, given the tape, which again, Dahlman had tape worthy of being selected in the second to third round, and the Falcons got him with their second, fourth round pick. And the relative athletic score is great too. He tested one of the best centers in the database. So there's certainly a lot to like, but again, for me, couldn't help but feeling a little disappointed that the Falcons might have wasted another third round pick after wasting kind of the majority of Deidre Sinat's career. So I feel like Hennessy's on that same track, but again, not to overshadow the fact that I'm a big fan of Dahlman. So what are your guys' thoughts, Alex? Do you like the pick? What's your long-term outlook?
So I think that you're right that, since this regime selected him, he might, have a little bit of an edge. How much, I don't really know. But I think on a purely schematic basis, Dahlman's a slam dunk. I mean, this guy is the prototypical Shanahan, LaFleur, athletic center that is just got the mental processing and the competitive toughness that, bodes well in the system if you're athletic. You have to be smart to play in these offenses. Believe it or not, they say you just run to a general area, but you have to be smart. Shanahan's offense is extremely hard. That's why Alex Mack, preferred going over there. He preferred playing in a system like that. He's got the lower half mobility to make every, reach block that a center needs to do. My first real hot take is I think he could start day one. He could start week one. And that is no slight to Hennessy whatsoever. Sometimes competition, metal sharpens metal. Hennessy could come out with some fire and, start over. But strictly from not seeing too much of Hennessy and, listening to Smith say he's got this plan for Mayfield and then, this Dahlman pick, I just, part of me believes that he believes in him as a center from day one. I truly do. And I kind of believe that with Mayfield, that I think that you could have two rookies starting this year at center and guard. You really could. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not out of the question. And my thing is the Falcons had so many injuries at guard and center last year. I wouldn't say so many injuries, but I think Alex Mack missed the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So many injuries to James Carpenter. Matt Gano was inconsistent. Matt Hennessy was inconsistent. I welcome the competition. I'd love to build some depth at those positions. Drew Dahlman's another guy, team captain, two-time team captain, all Pac-12, just a high character guy. Went to Stanford. Obviously, you have to have something between the ears to go to Stanford. And I think that's just what the Falcons were really looking for, is a guy with high intelligence, high character. And I think he was way underdrafted. I think he was easily deserving of a day 2 pick at least. But to get him in the 4th, I think it was a great pick. Taking the best player on the board and building some depth at a position of need.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely hit the nail on the head on our first episode when we thought that they were going to take, 1 for sure, and then they took 2. I just, I thought they'd probably look at a developmental tackle, which it looks like the undrafted ranks, they took a couple there, but yeah, I guess the smoke around the Falcons, kicking the tires on a couple free agent centers had some merit, and they weren't necessarily happy with Hennessy, what they saw in those last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I agree with kind of all of your points. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't even know if it's a hot take, Alex, that Drew Dahlman is the week 1 starter. I think his tape's that good. The fit is seamless. And then you got the connection to the coaching staff that Hennessy doesn't have. So he's kind of behind the 8 ball there. So, again, a little bit of a confusing middle rounds. But I think Dahlman in a few years, it'll be water under the bridge, and we'll be saying how great of a value and how great of a steal he was. The last offensive pick that the Falcons had, I thought they finished strong. I really liked this pick. They went with Frank Darby, the receiver from Arizona State. And the first thing you notice with Frank Darby, and I think it's truly important when you're talking about guys near the bottom of the roster, which is what Darby's going to start out as, is his energy. I mean, you turn on one of his interviews, and the man is just smiling from ear to ear, upbeat, laughing, joking. And guys like that, again, are important to keep the guys that are starting and playing huge snaps, motivated and in the game and all that. So love what Darby's going to bring with the locker room. And then, you turn on his tape. I watched his one-on-ones with the Senior Bowl. For a guy who averaged 20 yards per catch over the course of his career at Arizona State, you would think maybe, he's just a 9-route guy. He's just a vertical threat. But no, he's got some savvy to his routes, and I think being around Julio Jones, being around Calvin Ridley is only going to sharpen that a little bit more, and he can be more of a full route tree type of guy, and maybe the Russell Gage replacement if they don't elect to re-sign Russell Gage long term. And that could extend Julio's career because you can move Julio into the slot where Russell has occupied for the last season and a half. And, Frank's a true X receiver, which I think was much needed to upgrade over Christian Blake, who I think is just a guy and really shouldn't be rostered. So for me, I think they finished really strong here with this Frank Darby pick, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. Jake, I'll let you start on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really ever go wrong. By all accounts, from what I read, he was way underdrafted. Like you mentioned, the 20 yards per catch. Watching his tape, he was a guy I wasn't familiar with. Obviously, I didn't do too much tape study on receivers. I didn't think there was much of a point to it. But Darby looks really nice. Like I said, with his interviews, high energy guy. I really like what he brings, and I think with a 6th-round pick, you really can't go wrong with that.
Anything you want to add, Alex, on Darby?
That's about it. I mean, you guys nailed it. It's the attitude thing. He's going to come in day one and give you a positive on the special teams. I mean, regardless of what, some of these guys might or might not have, including the undrafted free agents, it seems like the culture is already set. The Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith already have cultivated with what was already there, and what they brought in thus far is people who want to be in the building. They want to do anything their coaches ask them. They want to do anything to help their team win. So I think you see that with this Darby pick. He epitomizes that. So look for out on the 3rd phase. That's where you'll see Darby.
Yeah, I think you made a great point there. I mean, you're really starting to see a lot of these culture picks, and with the day 3 selections, and Darby included, they selected a lot of team captains, and they asked Smith this, I think, on Thursday night or maybe before the draft, and they said it wouldn't be a determining factor, maybe like it was during the Mike Smith regime, but again, if they're captains and the way they lead and the way they carry themselves, you see it with Darby. And again, listening to some of Darby's interviews, he talked about him being a presence on special teams, and I think you're absolutely right. That's how he's going to cut his teeth in the league. And then I think, again, given what he already has in his toolbox as a receiver, I really think he could be, a 3rd option down the line for them. Once they kind of move on from certain players. So, again, really liked the way they finished the Darby pick, and then obviously the pick before that, Avery Williams, which we'll talk about on next week's show. But thought all in all, they added some key difference makers. Obviously, Kyle Pitts is going to be a huge contributor from the start. Mayfield, we'll see. I think he's more of a project. Dahlman could be the opening day starter, and I think Darby's going to mix in. Obviously, going to have a role in special teams, and then who knows, could be that guy you throw in the offense every now and then to try to take the top off. But let's talk a little bit about the undrafted free agents. I think there's certainly some guys here, with how many 1-year veteran minimum contracts the Falcons gave out this offseason. A lot of those guys, their job isn't safe. So that's an opportunity for an undrafted guy to come in there and earn a job. And for me, it starts with Javian Hawkins. The Falcons, Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot acknowledged the fact that they saw running back as a need, but Terry stayed patient to the board, in Arthur's words, didn't reach for any running backs in the draft. So, rest in peace to those Javonte Williams, Najee Harris dreams of mine and the rest of ours. But they got a guy who probably should have been drafted. You look at Dane Brugler's big board. He had Javian Hawkins as a 5th-round player. Falcons get him in the 8th round in the undrafted process. And you could tell they really wanted him, gave him $35,000, which is no small chunk of change for undrafted players. And what's interesting, too, about this pickup is, again, the connection to Dwayne Ledford. I think his hands were over a lot of draft picks and undrafted signings. And this was another one, Hawkins from Louisville, where Ledford just got done coaching the last 2 years as the offensive line coach. And again, I really think it would be a shock and an upset if Hawkins didn't make the team. With only 3 true, NFL caliber running backs on the roster right now in Mike Davis, Cordell Patterson, and Quadri Allison. I think they're going to have a 4th one, and I really think the odds are strong that it'll be Hawkins. So love what he brings. I mean, he's a home run hitter, 70-yard run waiting to happen with his burst and speed. So I can see him being that 4th running back, kind of, behind Cordero Patterson in that change of pace role in the backfield. So I think he's got a good shot. The other 2 for me on offense, Ryan Naziel, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, started the last 44 games of his college career at App State, which, again, to bring up Ledford, the App State program, I think, is one that he holds near and dear to his heart. He kind of started, really became on the rise as an offensive line coach at App State. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he's kept tabs on that program from afar as he's moved to different destinations. And, again, I think left guard is still an unanswered question mark on the roster, given, what we've said about Jalen Mayfield. So, look for Ryan Naziel to push one of those guys, not only for a roster spot, but maybe he, there's a major upset here and he's your starting left guard. I mean, it's a long shot, but I certainly think he's got a shot to make the roster. And then lastly, Antonio Nunn, again, given that Russell Gage is an impending free agent and, Lamine Zaccheaus is the same, maybe there's an opportunity here where they look to Nunn, who, is an accomplished player, tough player from Buffalo, that they scooped up. So those are my 3 guys. Alex, who do you got that has stood out to you on the offensive side for Undrafted?
Bryce Hargrove. You can't miss him, mountain of a man. When training camp rolls around, he's the guy that kind of pops out on the screen. And I just say him, basically what kind of reiterating what you said, that any interior offensive lineman, whether you be drafted or undrafted, you're going to have a chance to not only make the team, but, play some valuable minutes. I mean, it's just because of the uncertainty with Matt Hennessy. Is Matt Gano going to play left guard? We just don't know. So anybody who can play center or guard is going to have a chance to make this team. He routinely pushes defenders off the line of scrimmage, which is, maybe a little bit better for power than, zone. But he's actually better in pass protection than he is in run. And you can see how smart he is. I watched only one game, but it was clear that he was kind of that second voice on his offensive line, calling out stunts and twists and blitzes and, keeping his head on his shoulders, not overly committing to one side while, it obviously is opening up a twist or stunt on the other side. So he's at least, all here in between the head. He does lose control in the run game, and he doesn't play with leverage consistently. In the one game I watched, he didn't play with leverage almost at all. But that, something that can be taught. He's a huge human being. So I'm not going to knock somebody who's 6'7" and that heavy for not being able to get as low as some of these other guys that are 6 foot. So, he's a long shot, but I do like him. And then Dorian Etheridge, he is a 2-down linebacker through and through. He's not going to dethrone Deion Jones or Foy or even Michael Walker if he could even play inside linebacker. He's not going to do that. But he's a 4-year starter. He's a team captain at Louisville. There's that Ledford connection again. I mean, coaches still praise his intelligence. And he could be that, that special teamer again that, you need somebody on the inside blocking on these punts. And a lot of these undrafted free agents outside of Javian Hawkins are going to have to be special teams contributors to make this team. It's always been like that, and then you play your way through special teams to maybe offense or defense. But those are my 2 guys that I think have a better chance than the rest.
Jake, what about you? Who stands out on the opposite side of the ball from the undrafted class?
Yeah, so I won't go into depth on him, but Joe Skullthorpe is another former player, a Ledford's redshirt senior out of NC State, team captain. Everybody calls him a cutthroat competitor. You're seeing a trend there with the offensive lineup. There are two guys on offense I do want to talk about. The first one, Jack Batho, the fourth. I think it's Batho. I don't know if it's Batho, from the South Dakota School of Mines. I kind of just wanted to make the roster off of that alone. I've never heard of the South Dakota School of Mines, but yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. But I mean, he's 6'7", 315. The guy's massive, and he's a smart kid, team captain, biomedical engineering major. And I've read a couple of his interviews, and the way he talks about the game, he'll be talking about some. I don't even know if they're Division III. They may not even be Division III. He'll be talking about some Division V linebacker and say, oh yeah, I played against this guy and he did this and this and this. And, he would just go in and break down all of these opponents that he's had. And like I said, biomedical engineering major. The kid's obviously very smart. If the NFL doesn't come calling for him, he'll be just fine. But the Falcons don't have that much at swing tackle. So he might be able to make the roster, with that raw athleticism and the size that he has. Who knows? Maybe there's something there. I'm rooting for him. I think he's definitely an interesting player. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Felipe Franks. I think Felipe Franks is a lock to at least make the practice squad, unless he is just god-awful in camp. You have A.J. McCarron, but obviously you want something behind him because A.J. McCarron is A.J. McCarron. A little surprised Felipe Franks didn't get drafted. Really good size, 6'6", 240 pounds, great arm, really strong arm. And he ran a 4.5, which is a lot faster than I expected. Obviously he went undrafted for a reason. He does have his issues. Could fry an egg before he gets to his third read. Very slow processing. Not super accurate, a little mechanically wonky sometimes, especially when he's pressured, but those are things that you can fix. But you can't teach 6'6", you can't teach 4.5 speed, you can't teach a rocket arm, and he has all of those things. So there's a chance that he develops into a decent backup. I don't think he's ever going to be some kind of superstar. I used to clown Felipe Franks all the time, but of course now I have to defend him now.
See how that works out, right?
Yeah, and we talked about this last week, not wasting a pick on a quarterback. If you can get Felipe Franks, a guy who has traits, he has something. You can work. He has three things you can work with. Some guys don't even have one.
Yeah, I mean, here's a question for you. Would you rather have Felipe Franks, undrafted free agent, or Kellen Mond, and you have to take him at 66?
Felipe Franks, no question.
Yeah, I mean, given that they have similar athletic traits, yeah, I think they did well for themselves getting that developmental guy that everyone was rumoring. Oh, the Falcons, their plan B option was Kellen Mond. Well, they got a guy who's very similar to Kellen Mond, and they didn't have to waste a draft.
You look at the two places that Fontenot and then Smith came from. So Smith, Ryan Tannehill was acquired, from the Dolphins. There's more than one way to acquire.
Yep.
A franchise quarterback. Don't get it twisted. Tannehill is a franchise quarterback now with the right pieces surrounding him. The Saints now are moving on to two players that they acquired via free agency. So, there's more than one way to get a franchise quarterback, and it doesn't have to be with the 4th overall pick. More often than not, the starters around this league are from the middle rounds, So everybody who is calling all this,
teams fall out of love with quarterbacks, and what's one team's what's the phrase? What's one team's trash is another team's treasure, and you see it. Hopefully, it doesn't pan out for the Carolina Panthers, but you see it with them. Sam Darnold didn't work out because it wasn't a great fit for him in New York, and maybe now they're surrounding him with the right pieces, and he could turn out to be a franchise quarterback. So. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's so many ways to acquire quarterbacks. And
I mean, look at Jordan Love. Jordan Love is old news. It was the first round pick last year. He's old news. Already, everybody's already written him off because he didn't play for the first.
And Tua can fall in that same trap maybe if he doesn't make it work here in year 2 in Miami. So you never know. But yeah, I think getting Felipe Franks where they got him with the tools that he has, we're gonna see the developmental talent of Charles London as a quarterback coach and Arthur Smith and all those guys. And, I think Franks could become a QB2, and really that's all you can ask for an undrafted quarterback. So, Yeah, great one to talk about. Also, Batho is very intriguing as well. And when I saw that signing, and when I saw, kind of the unknown school that he's coming from, I immediately kind of thought of Matt Gano.
Ali Marpet? Oh, I thought you were going to go Ali Marpet.
No, I wasn't going to go Ali Marpet. I used Quinn Miners for that, and again, I'm disappointed that we couldn't get Quinn. I don't know why we passed on him, but no, I think of Matt Gano. I think of Matt Gano with coming out of Wesley College Division III and kind of what he's turned himself into, and it sounds like Batho kind of has a similar profile as far as the size goes. And you're right. I mean, and it's a great segue, I think, into our next topic, talking positional battles. But I don't know what to make of swing tackle. I think that's one of the more intriguing competitions for this Falcons offense, especially if they're going to focus Gano's attention on left guard, which maybe they don't now. Maybe they just gave him that $3 million tag because they know how important depth at tackle truly is. And maybe they return him to the swing tackle role, and left guard is up for Jalen Mayfield and maybe Matt Hennessy and Josh Andrews and Ryan Naziel. So, that's certainly one I have my eye on, is swing tackle. Obviously, left guard is a big one. Alex, what positional battles do you think are most important, or are you most looking forward to from the Falcons offense?
Right. And it's hard to kind of distinguish between – you can't go swing tackle because obviously the most important linemen are the ones that are on the field starting. So you have to either choose between center and guard. And most would kind of just go to center because they think that, and it is important. The communication aspect of an offensive line starts and ends with the center. He's going back and forth, left and right. But the guard in this offense is especially important. In this particular zone scheme that they're going to run, guards are especially important. I don't want to say they're more important than centers, but don't undervalue a guard. That left guard battle is going to be, right now, I guess it's going to be between Gano and Mayfield. And even if Gano wins out and McGarry or Matthews gets hurt on either side, it's got to be Gano going out to whichever side, and then Mayfield maybe stepping up in. But even if Gano starts, he's still considered the swing tackle. So like I said, it's got to be the positions that play every single down. It's between Hennessy and Dahlman almost on the center, but I would have to point to Josh Andrews. We haven't talked about him in a while just because it was earlier in the offseason, but he could surprise you at either one, center or guard. So it's got to be those two positions for me.
Yeah, and I think left guard does get the edge for me as well, just because at center, we talked about Dahlman and our thoughts on him, and we're high on him. So whether it's Dahlman or Hennessy, I think center is going to be okay. For me, I don't know about left guard. Like, I don't know, can Gano build on what we've seen from him? Are they going to throw Jalen Mayfield to the fire right away? I think left guard is the one thing that came out of the draft that I wish got answered that really didn't. And who knows, they have 4 roster spots available. They only signed 20 undrafted free agents. So with that, maybe they dip into free agency a little bit once they create some cap space, which will come. Maybe they look to a Nick Eason or Kelechi Osemele, who's still out there. I'd like to see them add another veteran there rather than, again, right now, for the most part, Josh Andrews is the most seasoned veteran competing for that spot, and I don't think that's a great spot to be. Jake, give me your thoughts on running back, because I think that's a battle, and I understand you might have a different take than I do as far as maybe that 4th spot.
Yeah. Of course, I just kind of want to see how this new regime feels about Kadri Allison. He probably has, I think it's 14 career carries, maybe something like that. I know it's not very many, but they did bring in Caleb Huntley, undrafted free agent, big time bell cow running back for Ball State. The kid's shaped like a fridge. And I don't know if they're going to replace Allison as the goal line back, but if they do feel comfortable with Huntley, obviously you have to think Kadri Allison's days are numbered after being a day 3 draft pick for the past regime. But I think Javian Hawkins is going to be locked in. don't see any way that Javian Hawkins doesn't get in the mix in some way. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. But with Ito Smith gone, Cordero Patterson got, I think, 12 carries or 20 carries for the Bears last year. I mean, he's a great player. He's not really a running back. I think it's going to be Hawkins, Davis, heavy dose of both of those guys. And then I think you're going to see some Allison or some Huntley, one of those guys is going to come out of camp, in my opinion, and be more of a goal line back.
Wow. So you think Allison's kind of maybe on the roster bubble right now, right? Is that?
I don't know. I haven't really watched much of Caleb Huntley, but I definitely know they're the same type of running back. They're both very big guys, bruising backs. Javian Hawkins is nowhere near that. But you could see them bring in Huntley as a cheaper replacement, depending on how they feel about Allison going forward.
My only concern with Hawkins, again, watched him a few games of his last night. And again, given his frame, he's 5'8", 180.
That's why I made fun of Chris Sims last episode for saying he was RB3 because he's tiny. I mean, he's not a feature back. Like, I like him. I think he's going to be a great player. He's very athletic. He's not a feature back.
Protection, he's always having to go low on the guys. He's not able to square them up like you would like.
He's not a guy you can give the ball to 20 times a game. It's just not.
No. Again, and that's why I think he is the Ito Smith replacement, change of pace, home run hitter, hopefully. So, yeah, then it comes down to, can Caleb Huntley show that, he can pass protect? Because if he can, then, maybe he does push Allison out. Because for me, I think Allison and Mike Davis maybe split the reps. And then you got, again, Cordero Patterson's going to be in the backfield a bunch. Whether he gets a ton of carries or not remains to be seen. And then I think Hawkins kind of mixes in with Patterson in that same role. So we'll see. But that's definitely one to watch just because, again, they identified it as a need. Didn't really address it in a big way, but certainly added some intriguing guys there to mix in. So,
yeah, one quick note. 2019 and 2020 Titans only carried 3 running backs. So not to say that Patterson is or isn't a running back or that they will keep 3. It's just something to look out for.
Well, and that's a good note because we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna kind of list out my depth chart, who I think makes it right now on May the 4th on offense, and I only have 5 receivers for that very reason because Patterson has an extensive history playing receiver in addition to his gadget role in the backfield. So. Whether you want to say they have 4 running backs or 3 running backs and 6 receivers, that's your choice. But that's kind of how I see it because of that standpoint that, Patterson can double as a receiver and a running back. So, again, to get into it, as a fun exercise, we'll kind of look back at this in a couple months. But what I'm going to do is just kind of give out who I think makes the initial 53-man roster on offense. And I'll let you two guys kind of pick out any holes or pick out any spots you think you would fill in with a different player. So start with offense. Not going to necessarily announce the starters, but, how I list them, kind of giving a little indication where I think right now that would go. So Jake Matthews, Matt Gano, Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, Matt Hennessy, Jalen Mayfield, Josh Andrews. And I have a free agent in this spot. Kind of going to cheat a little bit. I think Ryan Naziel could be that free agent, that undrafted free agent, or maybe, again, as roster cut downs happen, they sign someone off the street there, or maybe they sign someone off the street in the next coming weeks. So I have 9 offensive linemen. That's the 9. Quarterback, I got only 2. I do have Felipe Franks. I do agree, Jake, with you. I think he's kind of a lock to be on the practice squad. I got Matt Ryan, A.J. McCarron. Running back, again, I'm going to go with running back plus fullback. I got 5 here. Kind of talked a little bit about that just a minute ago. But Keith Smith, Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson, Quadri Allison, Javian Hawkins. Receiver, I got 5. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, Lamine Zaccheaus, Frank Darby. And tight end, I got 4. Again, keep in mind, Arthur Smith, tight end biased. I think they're going to carry 4. Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst, Lee Smith, Jaden Graham. And the great thing, just a little nugget and note on Lee Smith, I mean, he's essentially another offensive lineman. Expect him to be attached to the offensive line quite a bit. They'll occasionally leak him out on routes. One fun prop bet that I think people should just throw money on if it exists is Lee Smith getting a touchdown on tight end leak, which is my favorite play of all time. I think there's a good chance that happens at some point in the season. But yeah, Lee Smith basically doubles as that 10th offensive lineman. So that's who I have on offense. Any Alex, we'll start with you. Any holes or any different players maybe you want to put in that?
So I hate to just be a yes man, but I have the exact same thing. I'm looking at my screen, but the only difference I have is instead of Keith Smith as a running back, I have him as an H-back tight end. So I got 5 tight ends and 4 running backs. Yeah, but that's about it. That's the exact same thing I have.
Jake, what about you? I know you got something for me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to be boring. I got the same thing. But I will say I will add a little nugget to that. I want to see Jaden Graham get more playing time. I don't know why Dirk Cutter just refused to throw him the ball.
I'll put this on record, though. Instead of your undrafted free agent, I'll go with mine and say Hargrove as a long shot.
And by your take, I like it. I like it. Well, it's good that we're all on the same page here too. And again, I think that's a fun exercise. We'll look back. I'm sure we'll do a couple more of these as we get closer to the season. And I know you guys will have some 53-man roster prediction articles at sportstalkatl.com. But lastly, I guess just some housekeeping notes. We'll touch on it briefly, but there was some Falcons news the other day. 5th-year option deadline was up, and as expected, Calvin Ridley got his, and also as expected, Hayden Hurst did not get his. I guess the question maybe I want to throw out to you guys is, do you think that means Hayden Hurst, this will be his last season, or do you think, is there still a chance that they would potentially bring him back for less of a guaranteed commitment next off season? Jake, what do you think?
I'll push back on you a little bit. I kind of expected Hurst to get his. I don't know if that just makes me naive, but with his being so low, $5.7 million, I feel like that was a reasonable price for him. It may be a tad high, but I'm expecting him to have a big year this year. I hope he is back with Atlanta with a contract with a little bit less value. I don't think he will be. If you don't like him for $5.5 million next year, I don't know what makes me think they're going to like him for $3.5 million next year or whatever. I think they should just go ahead and trade him now and get it out of the way. If somebody offers you a 4th-round pick, I don't think you should blink twice at it. Sins of the father, Thomas Dimitroff, sending him off for a 2nd-round pick. There's not much you can do about that. Yeah. But if you get any kind of decent trade offer for Hurst, I say you just go ahead and send him off. Like I said, I would like to bring him back for a contract with a little bit less value, but I just don't see the front office being like, we'll pinch pennies, $2 million over it. Yeah, we still like the guy. We just didn't want his option. I just don't see that.
Yeah, and I think too, before I turn over to you, Alex, to answer, I would agree with that strategy. If they tried to broker a trade, get a 2022 pick for him to ensure, because I don't think there's a great chance they get a comp pick for him. If you trade him now, there's a guy that's still out there that I was kind of pounding the table for in free agency, Michael Pruitt. I don't know if he's asking for too much, but again, former Titan, Arthur Smith connection, he could seamlessly slot into that tight end 2 role if they were able to make a trade for her. So I'd be here
Delaney
for
Walker.
What's that?
You want another Titan? Delaney Walker's still out there.
Yeah, and that's a good one too. Arthur Smith loves bringing up Delaney Walker in interviews. If you've listened to some of his recently, he is on the older side, but again, would be a great locker room presence. Shouldn't expect major production, but yeah, that would be interesting as well. Alex, do you have any other thoughts? Do you think Hayden Hurst, this is his last dance in Atlanta?
So going off what Jake said, optimistically thinking you could get a 6th or 7th round compensatory pick in 2023. Why would you do that when you could trade him away now, save $2 million against the cap this year, and get, probably get the draft capital in 2022? So if that could be done, that's got to be an avenue that you're thinking about. But with that said, Leighton Vander Esch didn't get his 5th-year option picked up. Much different player in a different situation, I get. But just relatable that sometimes teams don't want to give that 5th-year option to a player that they are, iffy about on whatever reason. For Leighton Vander Esch, maybe they want to give him an extension to drop that cap hit down, whatever it is. It could be the same thing with Hurst, get him in on a cheaper deal. And I do see the value in getting him in instead of at $5 million and dropping his cap number to $3 million, especially for a team that is so cap struck. You really have to be that kind of guy about nickel and diming people, which isn't fun, but NFL teams don't care. They'll do whatever they need to get under that salary cap. And if they think that not picking up Hurst's option and being able to sign him to, say, a 2-year deal worth $7 million, something like that, it could make sense. Terry Fontenot, it actually came out in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that they were going to pick up Calvin Ridley's option. And then Fontenot came out and said, no, I want to talk to them first. So what they talked about, we might never know, but it could be something along the lines of like, hey, we want to do this with you. We want to extend both of you, but, the numbers don't align exactly how we want them right now. I don't know. It's looking like he's probably not going to be with the team, but just like you said, Arthur Smith can work wonders. I mean, Hayden Hurst is a bad blocker, but you don't need him to be great. Just like you said, Lee Smith is a 6th offensive lineman. Kyle Pitts is not a bad blocker. I mean, he's athletic enough and he's willing enough to block. He's all right. You just need Hayden Hurst to kind of not be a body, but, just do something more than what he's given you. And you got to think that Arthur Smith can do something more with him than the pass regime. I mean, he's an obvious receiving threat. So I see the value in declining it, but I hope it's because they want to bring him back on a cheaper number.
Yeah, I think the one thing that might preclude them from striking a trade is just looking at his cap sheet and over the cap. They did move on from him. He still has his $1.3 million signing bonus proration that would be guaranteed. So they trade him. They have a dead cap of $1.3 million. So that might be the major reason that would keep that from happening. We'll see what his future holds. I would go on record and saying I think this is his last year. But again, I want this whole band for at least one season. There's the Julio rumors, which I'm sure they won't go away, but I do think Julio is going to be here for 2021. And I made the case on Twitter last night that I think he'll be here beyond that, just because you look at his contract, his cap hits actually go down in 2022, 2023. It goes from $23 million this year to $19 million the next 2 years. And with the cap expected to climb back up, he's going to take up a lesser percentage on the cap. So, hoping to see this offense all together. As I started at the top of the show, I've never been this excited to watch a Falcons offense in the Matt Ryan era, and hope they keep it together. But if they did move on from Hurst in a trade, if they wanted to swallow that dead cap, there's a guy like Michael Pruitt who's an improvement as a blocker and offers some athletic upside as a pass catcher. So that would be the direction I'd go if they did pursue that. So. Before we go, we were running a contest on Twitter that we appreciate everyone participating in. So I want to announce the winner. Jersey of your choice, Falcons jersey of your choice. Although I will add, if you don't choose Kyle Pitts, I think you're doing it wrong. Why not go with that sick number 8? First.
Not the gradient jersey. Not the gradient jersey.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Alex, we disagree on this. The gradient jersey is one of the better jerseys.
You guys are just. I mean,
it's fine.
One of the few. It's like nationally renowned as like a joke. I mean, it is so ugly.
Here's the thing. I don't know about that. I mean,
I didn't say it was great. I said it was fine.
I wouldn't pick that jersey is all I'm saying.
The thing that I love about it, because, I'm a nerd. I think we all have a nerd side to us here. But the story behind it, like the rise up aspect of it and the history of the city of Atlanta rising from the ashes, I think that's cool. So, I don't look at it just like a jersey. I look at it kind of like a symbol too.
Okay, so I didn't know that. In defense, I didn't know that. That is cool from when they burnt down the city of Atlanta. Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Atlanta's considered the Phoenix city, so
Got it.
it's kind of a symbol of that. And I got
Still ugly.
Alex, I will say in your defense, it doesn't look good like as a jersey if you're wearing it, but when they wear it with the black pants, like I
think you can't lie. Like on the players, I think it looks hard as hell. Like I think they pull them off. On a guy like me, all right, I can understand. Yeah, I probably don't.
Yeah, I'm wearing my jorts and my cowboy boots. Yeah, it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
God.
anyways, all right. So to announce the winner, it's Jared at JM_0018. So Jared, I guess DM Sports Talk ATL's Twitter account later this week. Hopefully you're listening to the show every week. If you're not, again, doing it wrong, people. Well, yeah, guys, any last minute notes, closing remarks you want before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'll say the Falcons aren't trading Julio Jones because it makes no sense to come out and say Matt Ryan's your quarterback and you're committed to winning and then try some addition by subtraction by getting rid of the best player in the league or the best receiver in the league, excuse me. Yeah,
I think, again, if they want cap space, there's an easy way to do it. It's a Grady Jarrett contract extension or restructure, whichever you prefer. And I think we're going to get that at some point. Might take a little bit of time because again, they don't need to sign these guys.
I think they're holding off on restructuring Julio because they want to see if somebody will offer him something dumb, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and again, I don't even know if they need to restructure Julio because his cap hits are going to go down the next 2 years, and with the cap rising, you're basically getting a net increase in salary cap space. So while everyone's kind of saying, "Oh, the Falcons' 2022 situation is looking rough," I actually think it's looking better than it did this past year, and they made this.
The Saints just dug themselves out of a $93 million hole. There's no such thing as cap hell. It doesn't exist. It's not real.
I mean, again, I hate when guys say cap is a lie because it is a real number. It is a real number, and if you're listening, you know who you are. But there's ways to work around it. Again, Falcons aren't going to be big spenders, so people need to get that straight next offseason. But they're going to be able to do, I think, a little bit more with the rising cap. I will say I do expect the Matt Ryan extension as well, as long as the offense just doesn't blow up this coming year. I do think they're going to extend him and drop his cap hit down by 15 to 20 million. So that'll even help as well. So you're getting, 15 million there plus a rising cap plus Julio's cap hits going down. So they'll be fine. Again, they're going to have to be frugal, and we kind of want that from them. We don't want the mistakes or, Jake, as you put it, the sins of past GMs to continue to happen. And I think taking the cost-effective approach in free agency and not trying to overspend is the best way to do business. So, Alex, anything you want to add before we head out of here?
Check in next week. We're going over defensive prospects and all of them. It's the side of the football to worry about. We know how potent this offense is going to be. So make sure to check out next week.
All right, guys. Well, appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review the podcast. And as always, check out the content that these guys are putting out at sportstalkatl.com. For Matt, for Jake, for Alex, we're Talkin Birdy. Go Falcons.